Welcome everyone to Frank Analysis. I'm your host Franco. A big argument that I would hear from some progressives and some blue no matter who people about why we should vote for Joe Biden is because, one of the reasons is that they would bring up is that he is so much better than Donald Trump. He's far superior than Donald Trump on climate change. And what I would say on my show, and also other progressives would say on their show, is just because he acknowledges climate change, unlike Donald Trump and the Republicans, that doesn't mean that he's better on that issue. What actions is he taking to mitigate the effects of climate change? He isn't going to do it by continuing imperialism and to continue to overexploit resources. And this assumption that he will return to the Paris Climate Agreement, even if he does, the Paris Climate Agreement is a non-binding agreement. There's no enforcement, and it is the recommendations that they offer is not nearly enough, nowhere near enough for what we should be doing in order to mitigate climate change. So you've probably already seen, if you haven't, I've covered it on this show. Biden's transition team is filled with former intelligence officials. It's filled with big tech people, a lot of people who are tied to corporations. And now who he is appointing to the climate movement liaison should tell you how unserious Joe Biden is about climate change. He doesn't care. He doesn't care. Look at this. Joe Biden. This is from Jacobin magazine, by the way. I don't typically read it that much. I prefer the other sources that I keep up with, but they're okay nonetheless. But the authors are the journalists that write for Jacobin are typically people who consider themselves to be progressive or former Bernie supporters, but they settle for people like Joe Biden. But it's good here that they're acknowledging the unseriousness of Joe Biden. Joe Biden just appointed his climate movement liaison. It's a fossil fuel industry ally. Joe Biden says confronting climate change is one of his top priorities, but today he appointed his liaison to the climate movement, a congressman who has raked in money from the fossil fuel industry while voting to help oil and gas companies. So let's dissect this article. It starts out by saying, following a campaign promise bold climate action, President-elect Joe Biden's transition team named one of the Democratic Party's top recipients of fossil fuel industry money to a high-profile White House position focusing in part on climate issues. So one of the top recipients of the fossil fuel industry money. They're not even trying to hide it. They're not even trying to get the person, like somebody who's like in the middle of people who receive money from fossil fuel. He gets one of the top recipients of fossil fuel to this position. On Tuesday, Politico reported that Biden is appointing U.S. Representative Cedric Richmond, a Democrat of Louisiana, to lead the White House Office of Public Engagement, where he is expected to serve as a liaison with the business community and climate change activists. During his 10 years in Congress, Richmond has received roughly $341,000 from donors in the oil and gas industry, the fifth highest total among House Democrats, according to previous reporting by Sludge. That includes Corporate Political Action Committee donations of $50,000 from Entergy, an electric and natural gas utility, $40,000 from ExxonMobil, and $10,000 apiece from oil companies Chevron, Phillips 66, and Valero Energy. Man, what a champion for the environment. This is conflict of interest, and it should be illegal to appoint somebody to a position of trying to mitigate climate change, but is receiving money from people whose interest is in destroying the environment. How is that not illegal? It should be, but in this country, in the US and United Corporations of America, that's not the case. And we need to change that. Richmond has raked in that money while representing a congressional district that is home to 7 of the 10 most air polluted census tracts in the country. Richmond has repeatedly broken with his party on major climate and environmental votes. So even within his party, when some of them are trying to be better on the environment, he votes against that. He's one of the worst Democrats on climate. During the climate crisis that has battered his home state of Louisiana, Richmond has joined with Republicans to vote to increase fossil fuel exports and promote pipeline development. I'm sure that has nothing to do with the donations that he was paid so handsomely with. He also voted against Democratic legislation to place pollution limits on fracking, and he voted for GOP legislation to limit the Obama administration's authority to more stringently regulate the practice. Overall, Richmond has received a lifetime rating of 76% from the League of Conservative Voters, and he scored 46% in 2018, one of the lowest ratings of any Democrat in Congress. Richmond, who served as a co-chair of the Biden campaign, has not committed to supporting a Green New Deal. In a post-election interview with CBS, Face the Nation, Richmond said, "When we govern, we will govern with our values, but when we can't pass legislation, we shouldn't be out there talking about it." Wow. So just speaking on platitudes, this is a very Tom Paris thing to do. Like, leading with our values. We lead with our values. All right, well, what policies are you promoting? Like, how are you going to improve our lives? What does leading with our values mean? How will leading with our values help us with climate change? What specifically are you doing? He's not doing anything because he's paid not to do so. Cedric Richmond has taken big money from the fossil fuel industry, cozied up with oil and gas, and stayed silent while polluters poison his community. The Sunrise Movement, a grassroots group pushing for a Green New Deal. I've talked about the Sunrise Movement. They've been co-opted by big money. But Jacobin doesn't mention it here, but I'm putting it out there for you guys to know. Sunrise Movement, it used to be fully grassroots, and now it's been co-opted by George Soros and other big money interests whose agendas are to not mitigate climate change. They're tied to fossil fuel and big oil, and the ones that are tied to big green have an interest in still over exploiting resources in other countries in the global south. You're not going to solve the climate change crisis until you solve the capitalism and imperialism crisis that we have in our world. So the Sunrise Movement wrote on Twitter on Tuesday, "How will young people and frontline communities trust our voices? Will be heard louder than big oil, at Joe Biden administration." Varshini Prakash, the Sunrise Movement's executive director, who served on Biden's policy task force and who also has conflicts of interest. If you don't know that, then check out Robbie Yeager's article, which I'll have linked in the description, as well as Max Blumenthal's article. Said in a statement, "Today feels like a betrayal because one of President-elect Biden's very first hires for his new administration has taken more donations from the fossil fuel industry during his congressional career than nearly any other Democrat." Prakash called Richmond's selection an affront to young people who made President-elect Joe Biden's victory possible. Biden has promised a $1.7 trillion plan to combat climate change, and has said the cause is one of his top priorities. During the Democratic primary, his campaign was criticized for working with an energy advisor linked to the fossil fuel industry while promoting a middle ground climate policy on opposing a ban on fracking. He was also criticized for attending a major fundraiser by a fossil fuel investor, even as he pledged to reject campaign money from fossil fuel industry sources. Pledges don't mean shit to these people. If you want to know how authentic they will be as politicians, look at where their money comes from. Biden is reportedly considering former Obama Energy Secretary Ernest Moniz for a cabinet spot for a new international climate envoy post. According to the New York Times, climate groups have called on Biden to reject Moniz for any position because he joined the board of directors at the electric utility Southern Company after his time in the Obama administration. Moniz has also been a fracking advocate. So what really sucks about this is that there's a lot of well-meaning people that genuinely believe that Joe Biden was going to be better on the climate issue. And some of those people, a lot of them are just normies. They're not people who pay that much attention to politics. They're assuming that things are going to get better on climate now that we have Joe Biden. But so far, he's not even a sitting president yet, and he's showing that he's not serious about this. And these people are going to go on with their lives assuming that something is being done. And so it's up to people like us, people who are more informed, to let these people know that Joe Biden isn't serious about this. Like, hit them over and over again with these facts about how Joe Biden is not serious about this. And he never was. In the general election, he was saying he wasn't going to ban fracking as if it's a good thing. And even in the primaries. Look at this. Look at this video.
You win the nominations, we got to get rid of Trump. But what are we going to do about climate change? Now, you say you're against pipelines, but then you want to replace these gas lines. That's not going to work. We got to stop building and replacing pipelines. I'll vote for somebody else.
All right, thanks so much, sir. We're going to have you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I'm going to vote you in the general if you treat me.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm not.
Well, can I have a
Look, you're asking a picture of me, coming up and telling me you don't support me.
No.
My plan, yeah, you did. You said
I said I would support you in the general.
In the general. I'm looking for a primary.
We're happy to get a number.
That's what I'm looking for, okay?
Just because we're finding it.
You believe that Bernie can do something by 2030?
I'm actually supporting Tom Steyer.
Thompson, well, that's good. He's the guy that did
Thanks
more
so much,
coal
sir. We have a
mines.
long line right here.
The entire country did.
All right, thank you. Happy to get
You got the right
Can we
guy.
get a picture? Support you if you win the nominations, we got to get rid of Trump. But what are we going to do about climate?
It's absolutely despicable and unacceptable. We're being lied to. People are being deceived, and people were out there celebrating. Oh yes, like honking their horns now that we have Donald Trump out. All we did was change the face. We're not getting anything done. The environment is not going to get better. Climate change is not going to be mitigated. None of that is going to improve unless we take action and stop relying on these politicians to handle everything, because they're clearly not handling it. They're making it worse. So I also wanted to touch on this idea that Obama was good on the environment. He was not good on the environment. This is a myth. I can go into more depth with it in another video, but for now, I just want to touch on this article here on Forbes. And Forbes was making it out to be like Obama was this fantastic, like what Obama did here with shale oil and natural gas was a good thing. But this Jude Clemente guy, the author, he's a pro-fracker. I haven't dug deep into whether he is paid off by anyone, but I just wanted to show you a few things here that's written here. So President Obama's support for America's shale oil and natural gas. Look at how much we increased gas use for electricity, gas consumption, gas production. This is still exacerbating the climate and the environment. So under President Obama, U.S. crude oil production increased 80%. U.S. gas production increased 35%. U.S. gas consumption increased 19%. So according to the article, gas emits 50% less carbon dioxide than coal and has few local criteria pollutants to clear hazy city skies. But nonetheless, we're still emitting carbon dioxide. This is not a real solution. We're increasing our consumption of energy, and these oil and gas lobbies, they're going to seek for an increase in energy consumption. That's only going to lead to more environmental destruction and more climate change. This is not a solution at all. And carbon emissions have to go down to 0%, not 50%. And like I said in the beginning of the video, as long as Joe Biden continues these wars, he's not serious about climate change. The reason why we're going to war with these countries in the Middle East and what we're trying to do in Venezuela is because we want their oil, we want their natural gas, we want their fossil fuels. This is a war for fossil fuels, a war for our banks, a war for the weapons manufacturing companies and the military-industrial complex, which is one of the top contributors of climate change. So that's all I have for you guys. Stay informed, and don't forget that if you hear people, or if you run into people who voted for Joe Biden, inform them about things like this, so that they wake up and realize things are not getting better. Nothing will fundamentally change. And that was Joe Biden's own words. Stay informed.